Yeah, hey all, good to be here. My kind of story, I guess, is I think Mark hypes up my direct experience in the space, maybe a little more than is true. What he's mentioning is one of my first real jobs. When you grow up in a family business, there's no child labor laws, so I had a lot of other jobs growing up, working in various aspects of the family business. For those that don't know, the primary aspect of that is Holt Group, which is known as our biggest activation is Caterpillar dealership, headquartered here in San Antonio, but we've got a ton of employees and stores across Texas and in Oklahoma, and I am fifth generation in that business with my sister. We run and own it together. And so that's what Mark and other people say about family business. But as it relates to this group and early education and education in general, whenever there was opportunities growing up, our family very much prioritized service, and then the school that I attended also prioritized service. And so whenever there were options, I always gravitated towards the youth portion of those, whether that was youth sports or youth education or camps or whatever. And so, I did a lot of my volunteer service hours at the YMCA or Boys and Girls Clubs, that kind of stuff. And so I always kind of gravitated towards that. And when I went off to college at UT, I had no idea what I wanted to do. The way our family raised us and talked about things were, you can or don't have to come into the family business. We just want you to be happy, successful, fulfilled, and be a pretty big contributing member of our society and our community. And if you find your own niche, go for it. And so when I went off to UT, I probably needed a little more structure than that, quite honestly. I got lost. I got lost at UT, and they kindly asked me to not come back one semester because I was majoring in everything other than going to class. And so I ended up back in San Antonio, living at home, not knowing what to do. And my parents said, you can basically go work on the wash rack, or go work at in a ranching operation as basically a stall mucker, or you can find a job and go back to school. And so I enrolled at San Antonio College, and I got a job, probably out of pity, because I had no experience at George Grove Academy, which is one of the first charter schools in Texas, here in San Antonio. And I don't even remember what my title was. I do know that I made minimum wage, legit minimum wage, and I was part-time, and I was just a helper. And they assigned me to a teacher, a couple teachers, but mostly Mrs. Camp, who was a kinder and pre-K teacher. And it kind of reignited a passion that I had, or I don't know, just a curiosity of working with kids. And I learned a lot of things working part-time at George Grove Academy. I learned that I should not be a teacher around a really bunch of kids quickly. And I learned a little bit of the kind of inner workings of a school, and how much I shouldn't say burden, because most great teachers don't see that as a burden, but there's a lot of weight on individual teachers in our in our school system, a lot. And then I also learned that school in particular, their pre-K program started because their initial mission was to get dropouts back in school and get them graduated. And what they found was one of the big barriers was teen pregnancy, and kids were having kids. And so where are those kids how are they gonna enroll in school if they can't have a safe place for their kids to live? So that's actually how it started. It grew out of that, where it wasn't just that population. And so there were kids from all different backgrounds, with all different types of family supports. And the school, when done well, with Mrs. Camp really as the leader, not only did that kid thrive and become ready, but the family did well as well. The family was brought, there were unintended positive consequences as well, which I kind of, was really interested in. So that told me a couple things. One, it told me that for me personally, I can attempt to fulfill one of my heart's desires without making a career out of it. So I went back to school in the Crown Word and got a business degree and went to the family business and loved that and enjoyed that, but also knew that at some time there was going to come this door that would open. I didn't know how, that would allow me to fulfill my heart's desire. And so fast forward, I got really involved in mostly education through workforce development. Our business, probably half of our employees are technical in nature, and when I first entered the business, there was a huge gap, skills gap, and employee supply and demand gap in the technical trades. And there still is, but in Texas at least, that has shortened through the work of a lot of great folks. And so I went through kind of the gamut. I was on the Workforce Solutions Alamo board. I started or helped start SA Works, which is an internship and apprenticeship program out here at SATX. I was on the chamber. So I kind of went through that world and got to know the Butt family well because of their engagement in education and all of the great people. Sherry was mentioned, Kate was mentioned, Mr. Butt. And quickly realized I'm just going to follow what they do. And so when Kate Rogers basically showed me her, whatever it was, her 7th doctorate thesis on early education, and I had read some, it was around the same time, right after that, the Dallas Fed actually did a really long, in-depth study on the ROI of early education from a straight economic, no feel good, no kids are great, filters, just straight ROI. And the Dallas Fed said, hey, basically, if as a society, if we're going to spend money on education, our spending is flipped. We should, if you're just an investor, you should invest 90% of your dollars. I don't remember the numbers, but the vast majority of your dollars on early education if you want the highest ROI. Yet we flip that as a society. I don't think because of whoever designed it 100 years ago hated 3-year-olds, but it's just where we are. And so that came out, and then Kate showed me kind of her study, and a couple things I was struck by. One was how this was actually an interesting area where, at least philosophically, there was consensus. I know not 100% consensus, but more consensus on a lot of, compared to a lot of other societal issues, on why is this like this, and this, how does this get fixed? This doesn't make sense. There's general consensus out there. And then secondly, communities that have, I shouldn't say fix this, but in higher velocity than say other societal issues, poverty, food insecurity, racial equity, other big issues, there's communities that have truly had velocity and change. Fort Worth being one of those, Tulsa, Charlotte, there's, if you look globally, Singapore, that have truly made change. And so that was a pretty, that was my open door for me, sign to take this kind of head on and say, I should participate in this, and it's the right thing to do, and it's the right time. And I think for San Antonio, we can, my belief is we can actually fix this. And I don't think that at least my time in my life right now, I want to do all things that I feel like I can actually, I should say I can fix, that we can fix.
5 years ago, you and Joe Strauss launched Early Matters San Antonio, I'm sure along with some others. You've been co-chairing the advisory board. What progress, what have you accomplished in the first 5 years? And at this point, we've been out in community a lot, you've seen community reaction to the work. What excites you most at this point, and what are the persistent challenges that we still have ahead of us?
Yeah, I think that one of the number one driving factors that I think both Joe and I and our group, I wouldn't say it's written down in our charter, was we want to not create a redundant organization, and so that that's why these exist. We didn't, I mean, no offense, Mark, we kind of wanted Early Matters to do nothing but accomplish everything. And that's kind of a weird task when you like hire someone and say, go do that. Wait a minute, what? But my point is when we looked at the landscape of San Antonio, what at least our view was and still is that San Antonio doesn't necessarily have a quantity problem when it comes to early child care seats. It is getting better, a quality problem. It's not that we don't have a quantity problem, but less than other communities, and we have a bigger quality problem. And so, and we have an infrastructure of amazing providers out there that have embedded systems, structures, people that can accomplish quality improvements, much of the people in this room. And so we didn't want to hijack that or do it ourselves or create redundant programming. It was, how can we enable the existing infrastructure to do more or do better or have more coaches or people or budgets or shared services or partnerships, et cetera, so that the good work that is happening can increase in velocity. And I think a good outcome of that work is just the quality penetration that's happened. I always mess up our numbers, but we started at 17% quality rated seats in San Antonio. Where are we now, Mark?
58 at least.
58%, and I do, which I think is incredible, over 4 years, basically a really good advance. I don't think that we want to rest on our laurels, and so this new 70 by 30 goal basically embeds that as part of the process. And so I feel good about that. From what I would say is what excites me and what makes me frustrated is really the same. It's actually the same issue, which is everybody I talk to, whether it's business or education, the kind of core, if you want to put early education and define it as like a market, the market principles don't make sense. Everybody needs it, everybody wants it, but nobody can afford it, and nobody benefits from it. That doesn't make sense. If you look at any other market, if there's tremendous need, somebody will figure out with the proper incentives to penetrate that market and provide that service. And so that problem that we have in early education, when I break down the kind of work stream on why that doesn't make sense, there's logic in there, but I guess what excites me about that is that the consensus is growing that doesn't make sense, and that there has to be some solution. Now, I don't think there's consensus on what the solution is, but I think our view in Early Matters is we don't want to necessarily determine that. We don't want to pick winners and losers. We're not. We want to democratize, make it make sense in if that's in-home care, if that's subsidized care, if that's private care, if that's faith-based care. We're not in it from a kind of picking the proper way. It's really all about the outcomes and the incentives to drive those outcomes for kids, because kids and families, because It's that there's just so much consensus research that says when a kid has quality childcare, and I'm talking 0 to 5, I think this group knows that the I shouldn't say ROI, the foundation for success for that kid, and not only that kid but for the family, is so much, just the multiple compared to not having quality childcare and quality education opportunities from 0 to 5 is just this huge multiple above it. And this seems to be a nonpartisan, as much as possible, I know there's controversy everywhere, but a non-controversial area. And so I just think that in the next 5 years, I think we will fix this.